welcome to the Elevate With Us podcast. And, it's so exciting being a part of the podcast and being able to welcome really cool guests that come from a different place, still an entrepreneur, but really excited to welcome Billy to the podcast. We've had the opportunity to work together, and we've had an opportunity to bring agents to your office to learn about your incredible point of view and all of the neat things you've done in your life. So thank you so much for coming in today, Billy.
It's an honor. I have a ton of respect for you. I love what you're doing. I love that you're doing this, and I'm just honored. And my only goal is to try to provide as much value as we can for your listeners. So thank you for having me.
Oh my gosh, no, thank you so much. So you have an insurance company, but you're so much more than that, which I think is just so neat. I don't think that when we have these other businesses as realtors that we work with, we don't always lean on them for other things that they can do. So I was introduced to you through the Elevate the Elite. Taylor Stafford introduced us. I don't remember why she introduced us, but it doesn't matter.
Right.
Because I'm super excited she did. And you gifted me your book, which I've read twice.
Oh, that's awesome.
So tell everyone a little bit about your book, because they might not know that you're an author.
Yeah, so it's actually my second book that I wrote. So the first book that I wrote was about insurance, and I didn't think anyone was going to read it but my mom. It actually did really well, and a lot of people that are going into the business read that. The second book it came about from doing a lot of keynotes, and I started doing keynotes and started speaking. And every keynote that I did, I turned it into a chapter. And what I've always tried to do is learn wherever I have been and try to be a sponge. And what I was able to do with the second book is really just take all the lessons that I learned about running a business and about life and try to put them in writing. And the first book took a long time because I was doing it when I had free time. The second book was much easier.
Okay.
I actually recorded it, voice recorded it, then had it edited, and it was a lot better process.
Oh, that's really neat.
And I would encourage anyone that's thinking about writing a book. It's not as hard as we think, and we all say, "Oh, I don't have time to do it," and it's definitely opened a ton of doors. I got interviewed for the New York Times last week, and it never would have happened if I hadn't written a book, right?
No way.
Yeah.
That's super neat.
Yeah.
That's super neat. So did you, I've learned that there's different ways to publish books. So did you self-publish?
Did. So I self-published it. Amazon has a wonderful program. Again, the way that technology has changed over from the first book to the second book, they have a program called KDP, and you basically upload the document. You have I had somebody design the cover and edit it. I had somebody that kind of helped me with it, guiding me, but it was very easy to publish. And, I had a friend give me a reference to somebody to help me with the book originally with my idea. And very good firm. They actually helped David Goggins write his book that's got millions and millions of listeners.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, that's a really, but they were like a best-selling book that's nonfiction, which I did not know this, was 1,000 copies, and we're well over 1,000 copies with my book.
So they consider that to be successful.
A
best-selling book, 1,000 copies.
As a nonfiction,
wow.
Yeah, that
nonfiction.
Is nonfiction. That
okay.
is, and
low.
They wanted to charge a fortune to help me with it. I was like, I'll do it on my own, and because the main purpose of me writing the book was to give back to charity, and that's kind of one of the things that I'm very passionate about. And so, if I spent all that money there, it would be nothing left, to give to the charity. So that's really. It's been really, really cool and rewarding to write the book, and I know it's helped a ton of people. Like, people will send me the book and they'll have it all dog-eared and highlighted, and I'm like, that's what it's for.
Absolutely. No, it really is incredible. Can you tell everybody what the name is?
Yeah, it's called Business Masterclass, and so it's like basically how I run the business and what makes it, how to hire people, how to build a referral-based business. How I simplified my life and those kind of things. And it's really just kind of a lot of lessons. And it's a lot of times you'll read a book and there's a couple of ideas or there's a theory in it. This one, I wanted practical, tangible things that you could do, and you can say, oh, I'm going to try that, where it wasn't theory, it's actually real life things that you can try tactically.
No, and I think that for a lot of us, as entrepreneurs, and it doesn't matter if you're like a small business owner, like you own an insurance company, you own a real estate brokerage, if you're a realtor, or even if you work at an insurance brokerage, you're your own boss in some way, and you've got to manage your time, and that's talked about a lot in there. Like, I know you talked about like making sure your bills are auto paid.
Yeah.
because you don't realize how much time you spend remembering, paying a late fee because you didn't do it in time because of whatever happened, and just spending that time up front to set yourself up for success frees your time for money-making activities, because that's what it's all about, is making sure you're profitable in your time. And I think that time is a struggle for lots and lots of people.
For all of us. I mean, we're overscheduled, we're overburdened. We've got way too many things coming at us now in this new world. And, it started for me, that journey was like 7 years ago. And I said, how do I get 20 hours back with my life, right? So it was just about like writing down what I was doing every single day and documenting what I was doing and looking at those things and saying, okay, what can I delegate? What can I outsource? And I did some crazy things. Like I lasered the hair off of my face.
Yes.
I bought a self-driving car, a self-making bed. Yeah. I bought a robot for my office so I could be in two places at once.
Yes.
And I got control of my time. And a lot of it was, where it is for most people as I've studied this. I mean, I'm constantly looking at like, how can we be more efficient and where can I learn? And I'm constantly reading books. I'm obsessed with it. It's like, I realize that we only have so much of it, right? And it's one thing that we really can try to fix about our life, So that's the journey that I've been on, is just how do you figure those things out, and how do you get more of your time back? And there's a lot of different strategies and tactics to do now.
No, for sure. And I think it's really important to learn from somebody that's done it, because not all of it's going to work for you, because you're you and I'm me, and we're different. Right. But understanding that somebody has done something that you haven't done before and trying to learn from them is really important, because I like to say the only thing you can't get more of is time.
Right.
You don't ever know when it's going to be done.
Yeah.
And so it's really important that whatever you're doing with your time is value added, and you have to structure your day like that, right? You always have to make sure you have time for your family, time for your health, which I know realtors are super bad at.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm sure you can see the same in your business. Like because you're trying to work, you're trying to make the money.
Yeah.
Right. And so you're like, oh, I'll work out tomorrow. I'll work out next week. I'll start that meal plan then. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, that was 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And there's another 20 pounds.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think, if you're a realtor, you're thinking about like, what can I do to it's almost like overwhelming when you start thinking about, okay, I've got to have family time. I got to work on my business. I got to prospect. I've got emails coming at me, which is everyone else's priority coming at you. It's not necessarily your priority. I need to be in good shape. I need to eat right. I mean, it's impossible to kind of do it all. What I figured, I think you need to do is you need to take one thing at a time and get some habits built where you can actually change those things and then build those habits to where they become a reputation over time, and then you move on to the next one. That's what I figured is like concerted effort on one specific thing. And the two things that I think are the biggest time sucks for everyone, and what I started to try to address first was my phone. My cell phone is a very addicting thing, and I think everyone would be embarrassed if they had to like say, this is my screen time. Right. So that's number one.
If we like did a study, you were like, what's yours? What's mine? What's his? And you were like, oh, wow, you're on your phone for 22 hours a day. Like, wow, what are you doing?
Yeah. So that was the big one. Because we started looking at it like with our kids. We're like, okay, we're trying to limit their screen time, because I believe that the phone is the drinking and drugs of this generation, like the addiction to that phone. And so I just put some parameters on myself. I just said like, hey, I'm not going to look at my phone until 11 o'clock. I'm going to briefly look at it, but I'm not going to look at it, right? So is there a text message I need to look at real quick? If not until 11 o'clock. I'm going to get my priority items first. And that was a huge game changer when I figured out how to, like, that wasn't controlling me.
I was going to say that, like, what you just said freaked me out.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what do you mean? What do you mean you don't look at your phone till 11 a.m.? Like, I feel like that would be impossible, but it wouldn't be. It just feels that way because I 100%, and I know I'm not the only one out there, have an addiction to my phone.
Yes.
Right? We definitely do. I mean, it goes off, and they've made it like that, right? Yeah. They intentionally made it so that you're like, oh my God, I got to answer it. Everything has a sound, right?
Yes.
And so you immediately want to address it. So what was that transition like, right? So you were probably used to checking your phone starting at 5:30 or 6 a.m. when you started your day, and then you continuously, obsessively looked at it.
Yeah.
So when you decided like 11 a.m., what happened?
So I did two things. I did the 11 a.m. and then I also did between 6 and 8 p.m., right?
You don't use it.
I put it in a box by my front door because I needed to be there for my kids. And I know that as realtors, we're like, oh, I have to be available 24/7 and everyone wants me. And if you like set the expectation correctly, you can do, as long as they know when you're going to be there, when you're not going to be there, you can set the expectation. A lot of them are not doing that. But that whole, like, I needed to win my morning, and that's what I figured out, right? And so I think I've told you before, like, I always figure out what my number one priority is for the day. I write that on a card and I go, I'm not doing anything else until this number one thing is done. And if we all did that, we'd be light years ahead from a productivity and efficiency
Absolutely,
standpoint.
because we like to do what we don't want to do, right?
Correct.
Like the first professional development book I ever read was gifted to me by my second broker when I was in real estate. And this was, I think I was pregnant with my son. So it was probably in 2008. And it was like, Eat Your Frog.
Yes.
And that's exactly what you just said. And I remember reading, I mean, I was younger, obviously, than I am now. And it really didn't hit home until I started doing a lot of things. Like, at that time, I was like real estate part-time. I was a new mom. And I was, struggling with some time things, but it wasn't like it is now. And I have gifted that book a number of times. We have it at the office. It's a short little read.
Yeah.
And, you've read it, obviously.
Absolutely.
So if you don't know, the premise is if you would die, if you did need a frog, how would you start your day? Would you end your day with it, or would you start with it? And you'd probably just start with it. So it's over. It's over.
Yes. You get the hardest thing out of the way first.
Yeah.
And I think we do that training with actually my team, and we're like, what's the hardest thing you have to do? But I also think it's more than that as well, because I think, especially you're trying to build a business, right? You're trying to manage all the things that you have going on, and you aren't working on your business. You're in it too much. And so that first hour,
right,
even if hopefully it's longer over time as you learn to scale and become more efficient. But if you can get that first hour where you're working on your business, on something proactive, not reactive, that you're going to actually, like, what are some pain points that I've got to try to figure out and solve, that is not in the moment, right?
Sure.
And start thinking about what those things are. So it's eating your frog, but it's also work on your business for an hour in the morning,
right?
And you will have won your morning. You'll feel great because, I also get up and I walk for the first hour of my morning, and I listen to something educational. There's some people that I follow that I absolutely love. So I'll walk out one way, and then on the way back, it's complete silence, and it's just my own thoughts. Mm-hmm. What do I want to get accomplished today? What's that number one thing? What's the frog that I've got to eat? Right. And then I get back and do it. And so because I wanted to win my morning, that's where I put my phone away, right? And I just said, and this is another really cool thing, is like, I don't have very many vices in my life. My phone is an addiction, right? So I've realized that is what it is.
Right.
And I'm working really hard to be the example of not letting that addiction get bigger and reduce it. So, I really want to use my phone, and I also love coffee. Like, more than anything else, I absolutely love coffee. And so those are my rewards. When I do the things that are hard, I go and do the walk that I don't really want to do.
Sure.
If I exercise, I do the walk, I walk my dog, I do the most important thing, then that's my reward. I look at my phone for a little bit, I do a little desk scrolling, which I call it, and then I have my cup of coffee, and I'm like, now I can reward myself, right? Yeah. So you've won your morning, and then you conquer the chaos in the afternoon. The afternoon's going to be chaotic. It's just the way life is.
Yeah, because it builds.
It builds, and there's always something coming at you, but if you feel like you get that first part of your day knocked out correctly, you worked on your business, you ate the frog, you've exercised, you've done some growth stuff, your morning is won. And now, maybe you'll have some wins later, but probably not. Yeah. You're probably just going to try to survive the rest of the day.
Right, just survive the rest of the day. I mean, what you said is so powerful. I think that a lot of us don't realize how important setting the tone for the day is. So, and listen, there's going to be days you can't do that, right? Like, you're going to wake up, your dog's puked everywhere, you stepped in it, your day's ruined, right? It feels that way, but don't let it ruin your day, right? Get upset, cry, scream, whatever you have to do, but move on with it. And what's so funny is I also walk. It's something I've started recently. So I have a dog who's ill, unfortunately. And so he can't walk for longer than 20 minutes. Well, he would like to, but he just gets really tired.
Yeah.
So for so long, I didn't realize that I could drop him off at home.
Yeah, and then keep going.
Keep going. I seriously just had this epiphany like 4 months ago. So I was doing all these really short walks that were annoying me because it didn't ground me like I wanted it to. And so now, but I walk in complete silence. I realize that for me, the noise of even I used to listen to podcasts or whatever, but that education piece was like almost overwhelming me. So I drive in silence. which as long as someone calls me, but I drive in silence and I don't listen to anything when I walk, and it's really changed my morning because I feel like ready. Like I don't feel like I learned something, I have to execute it. And so that's really been life-changing for me, that I realized I could drop the dog off and keep walking. But I think it's really important. I think a lot of people think that exercise has to be like at the gym, running and stuff. And we live in such a beautiful area that walk is very, very nice.
Yeah, I mean, it's just getting out in nature, right? Like getting out in the fresh air. So let me ask you this, like when you're driving or when you're walking, what is your internal dialogue? I mean, are you thinking about stuff, or do you have like an agenda that you're going through?
I just work through the day a little bit. Sometimes it's me thinking, okay, I probably have 37 unread text messages, because I always do have a ton. This morning, at some point, I had 72.
Wow.
Which is very overwhelming. So I like to clear things off, but I've learned that I had to get comfortable with never getting back in touch with everybody. If they want to get a hold of me, they should try calling me, because I will answer the phone. But if you're going to email me or text me and it's an emergency, or you classified as emergency, I suggest you call.
Yes.
Because there's just too much of it.
Yeah.
There's just too much of it. I'm not an email person. I don't like it. I check it not often, which is very unusual, because again, I feel if it's an emergency, you should probably just call.
Yeah.
Right? Talking.
Yeah. And I think you're doing a good job of setting the tone, right? Like if you're working with somebody or someone's trying to get in touch with you, you're saying, first of all, you have your read receipts probably turned off.
Absolutely.
And you're telling them, hey, if you really need to get me in the moment, then you call me. Otherwise, those other things are mechanisms, but it's not your priority. That's not how you operate. And so you teach people how to treat you. And
100%.
Yeah, that's a big one. And I think one of my other favorite quotes too is, don't believe everything that you think, because some of us are saying, oh, well, I can't put my phone away for 2 hours. I'm in a sales business. What if they call, and what if they need me, or whatever? If you set the right expectation, you need to be in a little bit more control, because otherwise you're then constantly reacting and you get overwhelmed, and it doesn't feel right? Like it's out of balance.
That's how you get burnt out, because, and not that we have to like be bossy with our customers, right? Like we don't have a business without them, but you do have to let them know the expectation. I'm a single mom. And when I first started in real estate here, they were young. I was not leaving that at home. And I would let customers know in advance, hey, I'm a single mom. Sometimes my kids will have to come first, but sometimes they will be with us. So if you're not okay with my kids being with us when we look at property, then I'm not the right realtor for you. And some people said, no, thank you. They did not want to have random children with them. But for the most part, me setting that expectation, my kids got to see a lot of houses. And the best part is they're really good to strangers, because I force them to shake hands and introduce themselves by name to all kinds of adults. So I think, something good comes out of something negative, but you have to manage expectation. Agents need to get better about saying, I work from this hour to this hour. I take time off. I like to say there are no emergencies in real estate. We're not neurosurgeons or cardiac doctors, that no one's going to die if you don't get back to them within a certain period of time. You might lose a customer, but it was probably a blessing in disguise.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because they're going to be, they're just going to be terrorists of your time.
Yeah. And I think if you provide value and, you are a high level, top tiered performer in whatever you do, then people will follow your lead. But if you are not good at your job and you don't create a great experience and you don't make people feel like you are the best person to be working with them,
right,
then you don't have that luxury, right? So
you're right.
It's about being on your A game and you setting the tone and you being, kind of in charge the best way that you can be to deliver for them, and so.
Oh, absolutely. Because buying and selling a property is stressful. I understand that customers feel there's emergencies, but you've just got to manage their expectations of time. So now that you've learned how to manage your time, I'm sure there's a listener out there that is completely overwhelmed at their business. Their customers are running them over. They're not sleeping at night because they're managing everything themselves. What would you recommend they do? Like, what are some things they can do to get their time back?
Yeah. I think, I mentioned it earlier, but like the email was probably the second thing besides the phone. You know, like addressing the email in a way where I thought about every email that came to me, did it need to? And I created some additional emails because I was thinking 3 or 4 steps ahead. I was thinking like in the future, maybe there's going to be an assistant or there's going to be somebody else that's going to be able to help me through this process. So whatever they were needing, I was redirecting or creating these email for sales and an email for service and email for like our vendor partners so that,
brilliant.
That I knew that I could scale myself through that. Right. And then the other thing is like really understanding how to use rules with email and making sure like, have a rule that you unsubscribe to everything that says unsubscribe in it. Like it gets rid of your junk mail and those kind of things. So trying to get control of your email, I think was huge for me. That's where a lot of my time was going. And I think, where I really scaled over time was with people. And so, to me, the people are like, what's your niche? Well, my niche market is developing, finding and recruiting, finding A players. And I have a whole process that I do to get those great people. And, we're telling ourselves we can't find any talent or there's no good people out there. And that's not true. There's so many great people out there. I think what I found is like yourself, you're so growth oriented and you're helping your team grow. That's what we need to do as leaders. We need to be people that are helping people grow. We are giving them purpose. We are helping them with their personal growth and helping them professionally. That's how you find great people. And then they tell other people, right? So for me, the other way that I scaled was with people. I built an org chart for my organization. And over the last 19 years, it's changed 27, 30 times. But I always had an org chart for 3 years out. I was always like...
Wow, that's super... Wow. I'd say that's probably, I would say, a failure of myself is I'm not very good at like predicting the future because I'm too much in the today. So one of my goals for this year is to have 3, 5, 7, 10-year plans for myself as to what my business looks like, what my personal life looks like. I think I'm too worried I'm going to fail it.
Yeah.
I'm going to be like, oh, I'm going to have, whatever. And then I won't. I'll be like, aw.
Right. And no one knows that stuff but you, right? Like
sure.
you work on that stuff. I think that's really important. I think as a leader, we've got to be out in front leading and we've got to be out in front trying to like, what are we chasing next? What's the dream that we're going to go out and get? I think, we let life beat us down and we say, oh, well, I can't write that book that I wanted to do. I can't run that marathon. I can't train. Sure. I've got kids at home, and we make excuses, right? But I think we're happiest in life when we're growing. We're happiest in life when we're chasing something, and we should all be out there chasing something in life. I think that's how I'm wired. I've got to just be out there chasing. And so I'm constantly telling my team, hey, this is where we're going. This is what we're chasing right now. And here's what happens when we get there. And here's what we're going to need. Like, I'm going to need someone to step into this leadership role at some point, this position. And, and I might have private conversations, say, I'm really thinking about you. And here's where I need you to get so that you can get there.
Yeah.
And so, it's constantly trying to think 3 to 5 years out. And also, I don't think we think big enough. And I think if I were to go back and say, what's a regret that I have?
Sure.
My regret is I didn't think big enough.
Really?
And I've accomplished a lot of things, and I'm very happy with where I am. But, we could think bigger in life. Like if you said, okay, let me make the business, 100 times bigger, you'd make different decisions. And, the people that really start to scale things, believe in abundance, and we believe in there's just, it's like going to the beach to pick up sand with a teaspoon. You could go with a wheelbarrow.
Right, yeah.
And bring the sand. And there's just so much opportunity and so many things out there.
There is. And I think I love abundance. I have a super abundance mindset. If an opportunity doesn't work out, I just remember there's enough business for everyone.
Yeah.
There's enough agents for all the brokerages. There's enough leads for all the agents. All of that is really important to remember because it is your mindset. It's the energy you're going to put out. If you're all, woe is me, something didn't go the way you wanted to, everybody's going to know they're not going to want to work with somebody like you. I think there is enough of everything for everybody. And I do feel probably a lot of people think too small.
Yeah.
They really do think too small. They're too worried about how to get there.
Yeah.
Or what it'll look like if they did, what would happen if they sold $100 million in real estate?
Right.
Like I couldn't do that. Well, of
Right.
course you could.
Right.
You know, a guest we've had on a couple of times, Bruce Breedlove, he likes to say, if you had to eat an elephant, how would you eat it?
Yeah.
One bite at a time.
Absolutely.
And that's, you know, and that's all you have to do.
Yeah.
So you've been in the insurance business for almost 19 years? Or
Yeah. 19 years.
19 years. And so from when you started to now, like, what has your growth pattern looked like? Was it just you in the beginning?
Yeah. So
And you have a franchise?
Yeah, I have a franchise. I actually helped start the Brightway franchise, which is a cool local story. It started in Jacksonville and now it's nationwide. But
oh, wow. I don't think I realized that.
yeah, so it started, you know, in a very old building in a downtown area that had burglar bars on the windows, and I went to work there. I worked there for free for 6 months because I needed to learn the business, and I opened one of the first franchises, and it wasn't even a franchise at the time. It was just an additional location.
Okay.
And so I opened it from scratch in 2006, and I left a 6-figure job, and my wife was like, "What are you doing?" Everyone thought I was crazy, but I felt like there was a big need. The community was being underserved by it. It was a product that everybody needed, and I felt like we could do a much better job with it. And so I started, like I said, I worked for free for 6 months, and then I started the business in June, and I hired a person that was with me for 10 years, and we kind of just built it over time. And again, if I go back to those 19 years ago, I knew we were going to be successful, but I had very low expectations of what we could do. I was just trying to survive.
Sure, survival, yeah. I get that.
I was slightly panicked, and
yeah.
My wife was terrified. I was a little less terrified, but I was a little scared too.
Yeah.
And so if I think back, like, you know, an average insurance agency is, you know, the agency, like, there's one that the founder bought, and it was around for 40 years, and it was a $2 million in premium agency, and that's kind of the average. It was around for 40 years.
And they were averaging $2 million in sales?
That's what their total book of business was,
okay.
$2 million. And, you know, we're doing now $1 million a month in new business. So it's a completely different game. Yeah. So we're approaching the $50 million agency, which there's very few in the country that do that. And we just have our one office in Ponte Vedra, and we've got a great group of folks and a great team.
You do have a great group of people, absolutely.
Yeah, so it's been a cool journey. It's been really, really fun to have that success trajectory, and it wasn't anything overnight. It was a 19-year journey,
sure.
And people are like, oh, you know, it was incremental growth over time, where it's like every year we just got a little bit better and a little bit better and a little bit better. But I wish I would have thought bigger, you know, and now I believe we can be a $100 billion agency, right? And I would have, like, there are very few in the country, like maybe less than 0.1% that can do that. But I believe we could. And so that's, you know, the goal was to get us to 50, which we're going to do this year. That was a 5-year goal. And now it's kind of like, okay, well, what's next? Done. Next.
Right. So so how many people are with you at Brightway? Stay tuned for part 2 of this Elevate With Us podcast.